Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this fireside chat on the future of employee experience. I'm Pooja Bothra, your moderator for this session. Businesses have seen a rapid shift to newer workplace formats and structures in the past few months. Today, most companies focus on adapting and finding ways to increase digital employee experience and improve engagement. Employee experience is much more than an organizational cloud strategy. However, the real issue of the day is how is the move to digital impacting retention, engagement, and time to productivity? How can we create, a culture of collaboration and connection? To answer these questions and more, we have two eminent leaders from the industry with us. With great delight, I introduce and present the two leaders in this frame. Please join me as I welcome Manoj Kohli to this discussion. Manoj is the country head of SoftBank India, SoftBank Group International, and is supporting over 20 portfolio companies of SoftBank Group and SoftBank Vision funds such as Ola, Oyo, Paytm, and many more. Previously, Manoj was also the CEO and Managing Director of Bharti Airtel, and his key contribution being building Airtel as number 3 telecom in the world from 2 million to over 400 million customers. Overall, his 41 years of work experience is divided between manufacturing, telecom, renewable energy, and now digital sectors. Manoj has worked in US, Europe, China, Japan, and built businesses in 20 countries in Asia and Africa. Alongside Manoj, we have another distinguished leader, Prashant Pandey. Prashant is the country manager for Right Management India, the global leader in talent and career management workforce solutions within the Manpower Group. Prashant has a rich and extensive experience of around 2 decades in human resource consulting. Throughout his career, he has been a trusted advisor for leading corporates, family businesses in India and abroad. He has spearheaded the design and implementation of large-scale talent management and organizational transformation projects in multiple countries across the globe. I would now like to welcome the audience too. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. There is a chat tab on your screen. Please share your questions for the eminent leaders here. We will take the questions in the last 15 minutes of this session. So please let the questions keep coming right now from the beginning of the session. I would like to start this discussion with my first question for Manoj. Major disruptors in the business landscape are changing the way we work. Some of these disruptors are changing operation models, evolved customer preferences, cutthroat competition. Please share an overview of the changing business landscape, the triggers and its effect on the way organizations are run.
Thank you, Pooja, and thank you to Economic Times. Thank you to Prashant, Apeksha, Ritika, and Saurabh. Thank you to all of you, and I am delighted to be amongst all of you and the colleagues who are looking at this session. We are heading into a decade, and if not a decade, maybe 2 to 3 decades of constant disruptions. It is very, very clear from what has happened in the last few years, and especially in the last 12 months, that constant disruptions will be the order of the day. I remember the time when I started my career 42 years back in sugar mill in Dorala, when everything was stable. Everything was nearly static, actually. Nothing used to change. From that situation to today, when everything changes every day. Now, why is this changing? I think that's the point, Pooja, you are making, and how is it impacting us? The business has to change because the environment is changing. The business models have to change. The partner ecosystems have to change. The strategies, everything has to modify on the go. Because world is going through changes on 3 fronts. world of business. One is technology, which is the biggest single variable. I don't think there is anything else which is changing the world more than technology. I mean, look at our lifestyle, look at our organization style, look at last 1 year. Now we are talking of, earlier we said work from home will be 10% of the time or 10% of the employees. Today there are companies who are talking of 100% employees. Work from home has moved into work from anywhere. Again, technology. It is only because of technology. The technology gives you so much facilitation and enablement that you can work from anywhere. Now, technology in terms of digitization, and when we talk digitization, it is end-to-end digitization in your vendors, in your partner ecosystem, as well as in your dealers, distributors, your sales and distribution outlets. Now, I feel that these two are the biggest change. Technology, second, the regulation. Government also is changing rules and regulations rapidly. Policies are changing. Because government is trying its best to keep pace with technology. It's not easy for any government, leave alone US, Europe, India, China, Japan. Every government is struggling to keep pace with the changes of technology. But I think they're doing a good job. So regulations are also changing rapidly. Regulations which didn't change for 50 years are changing now regularly. The third aspect is the aspect of competitive intensity. The competition is not only becoming cutthroat, but also it's changing its nature. The nature of this animal, the character of this animal called competition is changing. The competition is disrupting the game completely. So one is the competition comes headlong and it competes with you on the game which you are playing. But the competition is playing a new game, which you don't know how to play. And many established companies are not able to either forecast or confront or change itself fast enough for this new game. So just to summarize, Pooja, huge technology shifts, major new government regulations, and not only cutthroat, but also a new competition, a new age competition. These three big aspects are making the business managers, the shareholders, the CEOs, the leadership teams on their toes. And if they are on their toes, then they have to carry the talent and the culture, both talent and the culture, along with them to not only cope with this change, but also win over this change. So that is what is the situation of today as it is evolving for next decade.
Thank you, Manoj. Very well said. Prashant, you are following this transformation very closely too. When you interact with various organizations across domain, how would you articulate the change?
Thank you, Pooja, and thank you, Manoj. I think very well articulated in terms of the way you are experiencing it. And I guess I'll want to sort of build on what Manoj has said and borrow things from him. And when Manoj was talking about the next 2 decades being a decade for transformation, I remember somewhere I read, and this was said by Lenin, in the almost a long time back. I don't remember the year, but I read this, and he clearly said that there are decades when nothing happens, and then there are years where decades happen. And I guess we are living through that year right now where decades have happened. So absolutely, I think the amount of transformation that we are seeing is phenomenal. And to build on what transformation we are experiencing right now, and I think what Manoj said, the whole evolution, the revolution that we are seeing in the technology space, and that being a biggest disruptor right now, I think that's the cornerstone of all the disruption that we are seeing, and everything else probably evolving from there. So clearly, the disruption that we are seeing because of technology is huge. And there are a few things that I'm seeing interestingly happen. What I'm seeing is while human beings and machines, the whole processing capability of machines and everything is sort of, evolving. I think humans and machines are also learning to sort of coexist in a very different, in a very interesting form right now. And I think that's going to be something which is going to be very closely watched. And I think we'll all learn to share our workspace with machines more and more and coexist along with them. So that's one. Second, what I'm seeing is a lot of shift in the whole demographics. I think there's been a lot of conversation in terms of India having a very young working population, and then there are geographies where there's been enough conversation in terms of the aging population, right? So the whole shifting of demographics in terms of where talent is. And talent, trust me, is not about headcounts. It's not about the legs and hands that you have on ground. But talent has to be looked very differently, and the way we define talent has to be done very differently. So where talent is available and where jobs are available, so this whole dynamics of skills scarcity is going to play out, and it's going to have its own dynamics in terms of the way organizations are. But an organization will need to figure their head around in terms of how do they deal with it. Along with that, I think the whole geopolitical case, again, Manoj mentioned about regulations. The interesting thing is in terms of how globalization is being looked at. So, redefining globalization, regionalization, and this whole new blend of, offshoring, nearshoring, homeshoring. These strategies, and again, something that Manoj mentioned in terms of, the pressure that's going to put on your suppliers, right? So the whole supply chain is going to be tested for organizations. So that's an very interesting shift that we are going to see in days to come. Last, I think what is going to play out, and again, Manoj referred to this, is this whole game of individual choice. The way we looked at work, the way my parents and a lot of people on the call, their parents looked at work, and the way this generation is looking at work is completely different, right? The whole concept, and this is again a phrase that I've heard, the whole consumerization of work, right? So it's almost like the workforce is consuming work. It's and that whole concept in terms of, and hence their whole attitude towards work is going through a transformation. This whole concept of a hybrid workplace, again, borrowing from what Manoj said, it's not about work from home, it's work from anywhere. So all these dynamics are going to play out simultaneously, one leads to the other, and they're all very closely interlinked, right? So just to make a point, the whole skill scarcity is going to have an impact in terms of the workforce models that are going to emerge. Digital transformation, customer behaviors are going to change. So all this is going to play out, and it's going to be a very interesting time for organizations. I think their business models are going to be disrupted, and they're really going to be tested. Only the agile and the resilient organizations are going to survive in my mind.
Thank you, Prashant, for all those points. So looks like the only thing constant in the business world today is change. Now, as a consequence of these external considerations, businesses are transforming. Some of them have demonstrated massive adaptive and agile behaviors. Manoj, please share your perspective on critical success factors that have helped organizations overcome these challenges. It would be great if you share some real-life examples and anecdotes.
Who will succeed? Which business organization will succeed? Which company? Which leadership team? Which individual professional will succeed? I think companies and leaders who love change will succeed. And companies and leaders who hesitate or who push back on change will not succeed. That's a very, very clear thing. Now the game is new. The game is new because, and I'll just give you 2-3 examples of how the game is new. One, this game has a lot of automation. And we have robots, we have drones, we have huge digitization, paperless offices, no offices. The game is completely new. And there's time coming when robots may have some EQ also. Today, robots have a lot of IQ, but in future, robots may have some feelings also. Can you imagine that? All the routine activity, all the repetitive activity, all the calculations, etc., which we have to do. I remember you and me, when we started our career, we used to do it mentally or through calculators that will be done by robots. So can you imagine the change which will happen? And if you embrace this change, I think you will succeed. Let me talk of second change, second example. Diversity, huge diversity compared to, let's go back 20, 30 years. Much more ladies in the workforce. Much more, whether it's Air Force, whether it's Army, whether it's Navy, whether it's police, whether it's offices, whether it's factories, much more ladies. The percentage of well-educated ladies is coming up dramatically, which I'm delighted with, because frankly, that was one area which was very, very neglected by the entire world. And it's coming up very well as a percentage, right up to the top. Diversity in terms of regions, diversity in terms of places, all kind of diversity is increasing. So not only ladies, but all kind of diversity, which is great, because decision-making will be better with better diversity. We will do a better job, better performance with better diversity. Let me tell you about the third big change. Millennial talent. Average age, 27. New thoughts, new ideas, new expectations. Very, very computer savvy. Very IT savvy. Very purpose driven. And Prashant was right when he said, when I started my career, I wanted to earn my living. This millennium talent is not worried about earning a living, because they know they are so competent, they will earn a living, they are so hungry. But they also want to check the purpose of the company, purpose of the organization. What is it after? What is it trying to do? Is it trying to help the society? Is it trying to do something positive or negative? Very important thing for a millennial talent, young talent. Also, does this organization give me constant learning? If it doesn't, I don't want to work for it. Does it have an open and transparent environment? Very critical for millennium talent. Does it have openness? Does it have celebrations? Does it have a first name basis from top to bottom? So the point I'm making is that companies and leaders who accept all these changes with a positive mind, with a positive intention, will surely succeed. And not only succeed, they will beat everyone else. And I think that is a real test of leadership now. Are you open, and do you welcome the change? And that is what is the positive energy, positive attitude, where when we select leadership teams, we should check. And any hesitation for change, towards change, should be a negative parameter for selection. So I don't know, Pooja, if I answered your question.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Manoj. This is so interesting. Definitely, mindset is a very important factor that can take organizations to the more evolved stage. Prashant, I would put the same questions to you. What, according to you, are critical factors that are creating the success story in organizations in this turbulent, uncertain, transformative times?
Sure. Sure. And as part of my work, I interact, as you rightly said, with a lot of leadership teams and a lot of organizations. So, my two bit, I'll answer on that. But just to pick up on what Manoj said about, the purpose, people are going to look at the purpose of the company. And I just want to share this little anecdote. It just clicked suddenly. And I shared this with Manoj the other day. We were having a conversation. I had this interesting experience, as part of the role in the last 2 decades, especially in the last decade. I visited a lot of campuses from a hiring perspective. And, as at the end of the process, when you're finalizing candidates, one standard question that gets asked to a candidate that you throw at the candidate is, the prospective candidates is that, why do you think we should hire you? And that has been the standard, a question that you'll throw. And I remember, and this incident has stayed in my mind, and it really gave me a first-hand experience in terms of how the workforce, how the young generation is looking at work so differently. And typically, I ask this question to any questions, and back in the question, why do you think I should join your organization? It was quite a moment for me when I realized, that, I need to sell the organization rather than, they selling them to me as talent. It was quite an interesting experience. Now, coming back to your question, yes, I think there are few traits that I think which get associated with individuals, but I believe they are so relevant for organizations today for them to succeed. Two, which I would sort of look at them together, is the adaptability and endurance. Old paradigms are not going to work, clearly. We understand that what gave success to you up till now is not going to work anymore, right? Competition is going to behave very differently. Customers are going to behave very differently. Everything is going to change. Talent internally is going to behave very differently. So everything that has given you success is not going to work. So clearly your ability to adapt, to be very agile in terms of your own internal way of working is going to be very critical. And then obviously everything that you think is going to work is not necessarily going to work at the first go. And then your ability, again, there's a phrase that you keep hearing, fail fast. Your ability to very quickly adapt to changing scenarios is going to be very critical, not only for leaders, but collectively for an organization. Right. And then your endurance, just being at it, right? That drive, that resilience is going to be very critical. A few other things that I feel are going to be very critical for organizations is, how do you distinguish between muscle and fat? And when business models are going to re-emerge, business models are going to go through a transformation. Anything and everything that you believed was muscle for you may not necessarily be muscle anymore. Right. And then as an organization, your ability to be very pragmatic, be very dispassionate, and understanding what is muscle and what is fat, and deal accordingly is going to be very, very important. Right. And then your ability to spot opportunities with all this disruption happening around you. Trust me, it's not bad. In fact, a lot of it, most of it is good, and there will be a lot of opportunities that will emerge. And your ability to smell out those opportunities and your ability to move very swiftly to grab them is going to be very critical. And I'm sure something that I think all of us on this call would agree, at the end of the day, execution. And Manoj would know, ideas are great, but at the end of the day, as an organization, your ability to execute on ground is going to be critical. That fundamental has not changed over the years. It's not going to change now. And that is going to be very critical. In fact, if anything else, it's going to be execution, your execution capabilities chasing a certain strategic objective that you have identified is going to be very critical in days to come.
Very interesting. Thank you, Prashant. So when you talk about execution is very important, and for execution, we need people. So when it comes to people, we look at HR and we hope HR would rise to the occasion, keep people at the center of everything. And that is how, the workforce can be more adaptive and agile, and, execution can take place, as well as new models can be, executed. So my question to both of you would be that what is the things you would want the HR to do? Manoj, you are the CEO of your organization. What is your mandate for the HR? What do you expect your human resource function to, showcase? And Prashant, because you work closely with a lot of human resource, function in across organization, I would also want you to talk about some of the best practices you've seen in different organizations where HR is doing phenomenal work. So first, we'll go to Manoj and then we'll come to Prashant.
Very provocative. So it's good that you're going to Manoj first.
No, it's reality. I think we have to talk about reality. Let me tell you a secret about myself. Out of my 42 years, first 10 years, I was a HR officer. And I started my career in HR 9 years or so. And those days it was very different, because I think India was still not liberalized, economy was closed, automation was low. Anyway, so I feel that HR has not evolved as well as it should have compared to other functions. Let me talk about marketing. Let me talk about finance and other functions, operations. I think those functions have evolved more. And actually, my single parameter of measurement is that how many finance, marketing, operations people go up and become a CEO, and how many HR guys become a CEO. So clearly, the HR score is low, which clearly means that HR has to work harder, has to work smarter, especially in this era of constant disruption. Now, Pooja, there are three areas where I believe HR has to take a leap. Number one is that basic understanding of business. Now, this is a huge gap which needs to be fulfilled by HR colleagues. Involvement in day-to-day business issues. Being proactive about business problems which are going to hit the company in the next 6 months, 1 year. So I feel that HR is keeping away from the fire, which actually is not good for the function. HR has to get into the fire, and then HR will emerge much stronger. And I feel that this is one big change of getting close to business. Second is understanding the impact of technology and understanding the technology itself, how digitization happens, how employees will change how we have to upskill the employees, reskill the employees, how the organization design will change, the structure will change, the culture will change. How outside automation, digitization of outside, which means either the vendors or the partners or the dealers, distributors will also change the inside of the company. So what is the technology impact on the business and hence technology impact on the people and the organization? So I think this is the second area of big learning and big shift in HR. The third area is the area of understanding the new employee. While there are countries in the West, Japan, even China, except for Africa, the entire world is aging. India's average age is 27, 28. Africa's age is 20 or 19 because it's a younger population. But if you look at Europe, US, Japan, China, etc., they're all aging much faster. So clearly, our population in India is young. 27, as I said, millennial population has new ideas, new ways of working, new expectations. Whether it is about purpose, whether it's about constant learning, open, transparent environment, all those expectations are different from the earlier generation. So how will HR acclimatize to motivating, engaging, and uplifting the millennial population is a new challenge. Because they don't want to be engaged in an old way. They want to engage in a new way, in a youthful way. Enthusiasm, a lot of passion, a lot of celebrations, in a positive energy, openness, being candid. So that is the third big shift for HR. So I believe the entire HR function, especially the leadership of HR, has to change itself first. And if it changes, HR will become far more relevant and far more contributory to the future success of the business and future change of the business, and will be able to help the leadership to be ready for the constant disruptions which will happen in the next 10 to 20 years. So I will encourage all colleagues of HR who are maybe online to please love the change and embrace the change, especially on these three factors. Thank you.
Thank you, Manoj. These are very interesting takeaways for all HR professionals. A lot of probing thoughts, and they can assess themselves over the points that you've shared right now. Prashant, would also like to know from you, what are some of the good practices you've seen in the industry?
Sure, and I'll come to the practice, and I'll just pick up what Manoj has said. And so there's a survey, and I'll sort of pick up some insights from. And today morning so there's a survey that we are doing right now, and the survey asks people to respond on various elements in terms of what the experiences are within the organization on two parameters. One, what they believe is important for them, and second, what they believe their organization is good at, how good they are on those parameters. So importance and current strength. And so while the survey is on, and today morning I was just doing with my team, I was sitting and just looking in terms of what the trends are emerging. And from memory, let me draw some pointers from that survey, and it will sort of set up the platform. It will sort of also sort of give some form and shape to what Manoj is saying in terms of, as a business leader, some of the points some of the asks that he put on the table. It will give some form and shape to that, and then I'll come to some of the best practices that we have seen. So around 80% of the respondents felt that this whole concept of real-time performance feedback is important. But about only 35% of the people said that their organization systems are currently proficient to do that on the ground. Again, about 80% of the people said that having virtual recruitment tools to reduce cycle times of recruitment are very important. So on the importance scale, it's 80%. But how good currently organizations are, less than 50% said that we are currently good at that. Right? Again, almost 70% people said that this whole concept of distributed learning from home, ability, bite-sized learning is extremely important. But again, just about 50% of the people said that my organization is good at that. Now this is data, and this is hard data. This is voice of the people as we have captured, and we are still capturing it. And this is This is live data, and data doesn't lie. I mean, this is something that we all would agree to. So clearly, there's work to be done. And the way I would look at it, for people to, from a maturity curve perspective, from a process perspective, I would like to think about it, and different organizations, and I'm not saying it's all, different organizations are different on the different, phase of the maturity cycle. And if I may look at it from from the maturity from a 3-stage perspective, one is clearly, the whole awareness and appreciation of what needs to be done. And if you don't do it, what could be the implication? Right? Again, what Manoj said, the whole business understanding of the business and why we need to do certain things. This whole awareness and appreciation. Some organization and most of the community, most of the people are in general aware of it. But are you able to move on to the next stage from an intent perspective? And intent is display of intent, right? And intent is all about, the intent phase would be all about getting business leaders aligned to it, what very clear intent that what you want to do, because obviously every organization has limited resources. So you have to make very strategic choices what you would want to do, right? On the hard side or on the soft side, right? And you need to make those strategic choices. So that intent of what you need to do has to be very clear, and why you're doing what you're doing has to be very clear. And third is then the execution bit, right? People need to be, ultimately, as I keep saying, this execution is the key. You may have great awareness, you may have great intent, but if execution doesn't happen, it's money down the drain. It's time lost. It doesn't work. So different organizations are on different phases in terms of the maturity curve, but certain things that I have seen working well, and without getting in terms of names of the organization, I think where I've seen a lot of good work happening is the whole talent acquisition cycle. Using technology in the talent acquisition cycle is where I'm seeing a lot of work happening, right? Using technology platforms, even to the extent, certain organizations even using bots. That's clearly happening, and it's happening in India, and there are organizations that are doing it very successfully. On the talent management side, there's a lot of exciting work happening. For example, and one example that I can share from personal example, and this was a great, and this was in the energy space, a public sector enterprise. I mean, this was a great, we have been working with this organization for the past 5-6 years, and, there was this work that was pending with us or in terms of doing assessments for around 200 middle level leaders, and this was all to be done in a face-to-face manner, in the in-person manner. And then pandemic hit and everything went on to a standstill, and it was really a very good surprise and a happy experience for us that the organization, a public sector energy company, decided to experience and move into an online assessment platform. First time for them, but their willingness to experiment and try, and rather than wait कि जब pandemic खत्म होगा तो देखेंगे तब करेंगे, rather than wearing that hat, taking that initiative and and implementing that was a great it was a very happy, satisfying experience for us also, living through that entire process in terms of transforming this entire process into an online format. So these are some of the examples that I would like to quote. I could go on and on, but I'm conscious of time, so I'll hand it back to you, Pooja.
Thank you, Prashant. At this point, we need to really talk about employee experience. How when we talk about intent and execution and this entire, ask that we have from the workforce, what kind of experiences can we create for employees so that they are, motivated, really motivated? And how is employee experience changing? While I throw this question, there is an audience question also connected to this, which also I would want to add with this question. They are concerned that digital employee experiences strategy, which is very, talked about, in industry now, does it kind of keep the human connect out of it? So how can you keep the human intent when you design digital employee experience strategy? That is the second part of this question. So I'll go to Manoj, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Pooja. The employee experience has become far more important than ever in the past. because young employees are sensitive to experience. And they really reject bad experience if it comes to them. They don't worry. Now, what is the experience they want? Let's go through 5 steps. Step 1 is, does the company have a dream? Does the company have a strategic goal which it is sharing with me? If it is not sharing with me, I'm not getting good experience. Very, very important. Employee has to be clear on where we are going, where the company is going, where the business is going, what is the strategic intent and direction. So that's first. Second is, what is the plan? Am I involved? Is my experience in building the business plan there? If I'm not involved in building the business plan, then how do you expect me to do it? So involvement in planning. Third is help or empowerment in execution. When you want me to execute, when you expect me to do a fantastic execution, have you empowered me? If you haven't empowered me, how will I execute? If you haven't given me tools, if you haven't given me delegation of power, how do you expect me to do it? Fourth is appraisals. My experience of my appraisal or organization performance appraisal, my unit's appraisal, my team's appraisal has to be very objective and fair. And if it is not, I will not be happy in contributing in future. And last but not the least, celebrations. My experience of celebrating successes, celebrating victories and winnings, whether they are small or big, is also very important. Because I want to celebrate, I want to enjoy my hard work resulting in winning of the company. So does the company do celebrations? And if so, am I involved in that? Is my experience good? My team's experience good? So these are the 5 experience areas which every employee, young employee, expects. And if you don't provide all these, that organization will have a problem. So therefore, employee involvement, employee experience enhancement is a critical expectation of leadership of tomorrow. Now, the next question you asked was about digital. Mind you, digital doesn't mean that it is not human. I don't understand this. Digital means only the transactions are digital, but the interaction is human. And especially your immediate boss, immediate superior, and your reviewer, which is superior, the boss of your superior, they have to be in touch with me. They have to know me as a person. They have to know me as a good employee. A good employee who has aspirations. They should know my aspirations. They should know my potential. They should understand what I want to do and what I want to go, where I want to go. So the digital experience only replaces the routine, but doesn't replace the qualitative discussions, doesn't replace the caring which my manager and his superior has to do for me as an employee. They have to care for me, they have to care for my future, they have to tell me what they will do for me in the coming 2-3 years. So digital only takes away the routine part and saves time. So that is my expectation of good quality leadership teams of future.
Thank you, Manoj. Very nicely explained. Prashant, what would your thought?
No, absolutely. I think, it's not an either and or. And just picking up on the question, it's not an either and or. Both are going to coexist. And the whole digital piece is in terms of, how do you do it more efficiently, make it more personalized, right? And and create an experience around the entire employee. I mean, map the entire employee life cycle within an organization from the time you select talent to onboard to the talent management piece, the performance appraisal, and unfortunately, if there's an exit situation. Right there, you map the entire employee life cycle, and then at each touch point, what is the continuing touch point? What is the experience that you're giving, and where the whole digital element will add value? And there are certain things where the human interaction cannot be done away with. So it's not that it has to be 100%. It's not an either and or situation. So it has to be, and that's the where and that's where the whole we are talking about smart HR, right? That's the whole, that's where HR needs to be smart, right? In terms of what the experience that you're giving at each touch point. And and then the tools are available, and you need to use them smartly, and and then you cannot do the entire end-to-end whole hog. Then you need to make those strategic choices. It's all about that.
Thank you, Prashant. Very interesting. The human touch can never go away from HR, and it's a collaboration between man and machine. Finally, that's going to be more enabling. One question I have for you, Prashant, is the business acquisition function is also going through a transformation. We all agree that one size does not fit all. What is your perspective on how we can best engage this cohort and design initiatives to help them stay sharp in this very disruptive times?
Absolutely. I think, if the way we are doing business, and if our customers are going to behave very differently, and the way we are going to engage with them needs to evolve, then our entire business acquisition function, which is ultimately the breadwinner within an organization, their reorientation completely needs to go through a transformation. And again, I will draw a parallel to what Manoj said in terms of the vision of the organization. Your ability to sell to a workforce. It's the same. Ultimately, my business acquisition function needs to understand what's the customer experience, what is my promise to the customer, and that's going to change, right? That's going to evolve. So what do I stand for? What is my promise to the customer? What is the experience that I need to give at the business acquisition stage and post that? That needs to be, and especially for organizations which are distributed, what's my way of selling, so to say? That needs to be clearly articulated. How am I using, again, technology, to create that entire experience? So that, so we need to look at it in a short form. You need to look at it from three pillars perspective. One is strategy. What's my vision of my sales engine? What's my promise to the customer? And that then needs to be backed up with the physical part of it, my org structure, the clearly, what are the reporting relationships, how the planning needs to be done. So that's the whole strategy. How emotionally connected I am to the brand, how emotionally I'm connected to my product and service that I'm taking to the market. That's going to be very critical. So that's a strategy piece. The execution piece is, again, how do you use technology? How are you using processes? What is the standard customer experience? Again, very relevant when it's a distributed sales force. There are multiple touch points are different. So what's that? And how are you using your whole recalibration? How quickly are you recalibrating basis the customer experience that you're capturing, and how quickly is it feeding back into the system so that you're able to re-engineer your processes? So that's the execution piece. And third, as always, it will always be the people piece, right? So business acquisition, we all know it's so much about resolution. So are you getting the right talent on board? How are you reskilling them? Purpose? How are they being coached on field? Right? So many times I see people try to address sales effectiveness, business acquisition effectiveness via the training route. Nothing wrong with that. But the question that we need to ask, just doing a 2 days workshop within 4 walls of the classroom, will it change behaviors on the ground? Right? And that's a question that we need to ask ourselves. So the whole approach to the whole upskilling of the sales business acquisition engine becomes a very critical question that we need to ask Pooja.
Thank you, Prashant. Manoj, I would also like your thoughts on this. what kind of engagement activities can be specially designed for this cohort, who are the faces, for the organization, for our customers? How can we rapidly learn from the, customer feedback, incorporate and prepare this cohort, multi-generational cohort, in the business acquisition side?
I believe that the customer-facing employees are most important employees of the company. And not only they have to be treated very respectfully, but they have to train very deeply, because their effectiveness and their satisfaction is critical to success of the company. If they are not effective, I think they'll not do a great job and company will suffer. And if they are not satisfied, they will not satisfy the customer. And therefore, good companies always believe that employees come first and customers come later. Because if employees are in good shape, customers will automatically be in good shape. So I believe that customer-facing employees generally, I have seen, need a lot of guidance, training, need a lot of empowerment, because customer expectations and demands are very tough sometimes. Need a lot of enablement in terms of reach to the customer, or empowerment in terms of resolving the problems, complaints, issues regularly and very swiftly. Also, I think they need tools. I remember I was in Tokyo and we were at a showroom of our company, and I saw very interestingly that sales lady in the showroom had a tablet on which, as soon as the showroom closed, she could see how much she sold in the daytime, how much was the revenue of the day, thanks to her, and thanks to her, what commission she will earn on that day. Each phone bundling, iPhone bundling, Samsung bundling, etc., had a different value, and she earned commission based on company's profitability. If company earns a lot on X phone bundling, then of course she will earn a lot. If company doesn't earn much, she will also not earn. So her goal, her specific target, commission, etc., is fully aligned to company profitability, which is fantastic, because that is the only way. If employees at the front end, they are aligned with what company needs in terms of revenue and profits, I think that alignment is very, very critical for company success. Because not only it will motivate the employee to do the right thing for the company, but also company finally gets the good results from that employee, and it's a win-win. So I believe that this is a very important area of company to HR to focus on, leadership to focus on. And I remember in my Airtel days, Airtel used to had a slogan called "Win Every Day." And of course, we won majority of the days. And in few days where we didn't win, the team used to be quite disappointed, but not in a negative way. We ensured that they are disappointed or in a positive way, that okay, fine, we lost today, but tomorrow we'll win definitely. And these are the new plans for tomorrow. This is what they expected from management. Management approved it very fast so that the employees go out tomorrow and win again tomorrow. So, and that's why the company won. The brand became number one. And from Airtel became from kind of ground zero up to number one in the country across categories. And it was basically because the front-end employees, customer-facing employees, were delighted by the support and empowerment they got.
Thank you, Manoj. So we'll just take a few audience questions. Here we have a question where somebody is asking, what are the metrics to assess whether a team is engaged? So Prashant, would you like to take that?
Sure. I think there's enough research, and that fundamental truth has not changed over time. And there's there are certain lead indicators and there are lag indicators. In sales, they always talk about lead indicators and lag indicators, and picking up. Lag indicators are ultimately how much you have sold, and lead indicators are if you manage your funnel well, on the number of calls that you have done. So everything else being equal, it will lead to a certain outcome. And the same concept applies to engagement. So the fundamental truth, which has not changed, is the linkage between engagement and productivity. Right? So over a period of time, to say that my people are extremely engaged and the organization or the function or the business is not delivering is difficult to imagine. So the lag indicator will always be in terms of what exactly have you delivered on the business side. So that's where the rubber meets the road. Ultimately, that's what matters. So that's clearly from a lag indicator perspective. There would be certain lead indicators that you would need to watch out for. And then certain lead indicators would be in terms of this whole concept of from a constant feedback perspective. I'll give you, organizations have this whole concept of running engagement surveys year on year, right? And it's a well-established practice. One of the things that is a good indicator, forget what the output of the survey is, the amount of follow-up that you need to do for people to respond to the survey itself is an indicator of how engaged people are. Right? That itself is a good. Forget what the output will say. वो 5 का score आएगा नहीं आएगा वो it's a. But how much do you need to chase people to respond is an indicator. Right? And then there are touch points that you can create, and so these are some of the, so you'll very need. So the point I'm trying to make is identify certain lag indicators, which typically would be business outcomes, and there would be certain lead indicators that you need to identify. And once you look at those factors, I think you can get a good indicator. Attrition, again, there's a lot of conversation around attrition. Is attrition is a good indicator? Double-edged sword. Because you don't want bench warmers in an organization, right? So just because you have a single-digit attrition over the years, is that a great indicator? You need to take it with a pinch of salt. Again, it's a topic in itself. So again, conscious of time, we're almost in the last minute. So I'll let Manoj also.
I'd like to take one more question. Here, in these times when vertical growth is very rare, because of the pandemic and economy slowdown, what are other kind of opportunities that can be created for employees, that helps them, that makes them feel that they are growing, though it's not a customary promotion or vertical, climbing the ladder. So, Manoj, would you like to share?
No, I have a different opinion of the question itself.
Okay.
Because I think we'll have vertical growth. In India, this year we are expecting a double-digit growth of maybe 10%, 11% of GDP. And I'm sure this decade will be very, very good growth, average of 7 to 8%, definitely. And there will be many companies who will grow very rapidly. So many employees will have vertical growth. But those companies which don't grow that much, I think the biggest thing employees need is new learnings, new responsibilities at the same level. Forget the level for a minute, forget compensation for a minute. New learnings, which are new developmental initiatives, new responsibilities compared to other past responsibilities, lateral movements, job rotation, because employees need change. And with change, employees mature faster, they gain experience, they become more confident. So everything is not linked to vertical growth. Everything is not linked to salaries or titles. And I believe even more empowerment actually to an employee. gives a great experience, new experience. And in the same job, he or she will feel much more confident and do more. So I think there's so many other ways to motivate and encourage an employee for higher performance than just vertical growth.
Thank you, Manoj. Prashant, any closing remark? Because I think it's time to close down.
Yeah, I think when only one point I like to make. So while you're thinking of growth, also think of relevance. You know how relevant you are, and if you have invested in yourself, and the organization has invested in you to continue to be relevant in these fast changing times where talent, you know, what sort of skills are required as going through a huge transformation, I think that is growth.
Sure. So thank you, Manoj. Thank you, Prashant. So nicely being able to articulate the transformation as well as the future of employee experience. You've also been able to, give us a very vivid picture of, what the HR should be kind of being, what the HR should look like, how it needs to rise up to the occasion, how it needs to evolve as everything in the business world is evolving, and how and why employee experience is so important. So it was a really insightful session. Thank you to both of you. I hope the audience have great takeaways from this session. Thank you for joining us. And we have another webinar on 19th. Please connect and join in there as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Manoj. Thank you so much, Pooja.
All the best. Thank you, Prashant. Thank you, Pooja.